Grab your bass, try this with me. 1, 2, 3, and. Just a C. 3rd fret on your A string in that rhythm. Boom, boom, Now, you'll probably recognize this rhythm, this rhythmic key from the singer-songwriter rhythm from Module 2, right? Let's add a little bit of extra stuff. Let's add an extra C at the very end of the bar. 1, 2, so we'll go every time, just a bit of a push. Now notice we're still in the rhythmic key. We haven't strayed from it. We've just added that tiny bit of rhythmic interest. Just like that. But let's go a little bit further. Let's add an A into this line. So C, 3rd fret on the A string, down to the 5th fret on the E string, that E right there. And let's put 2 of them in there. First one we go da ba 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 da da ba da. So 1, 2, 3 ba ba da ba da da ba da. Okay, so this is starting to sound, you know, a little bit better, kind of a bit cooler. But let's make one last addition to this bass line and add 2 low Gs, 3rd frets on the E string right there. And we'll play them in between the C and the A. Check this out. 1, 2, 3, and. Now, does this sound familiar to you? I wouldn't be surprised. It's the bass line to I Can't Help Myself, you know, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. But check this out. We started just with this. Just super basic singer-songwriter rhythm on the root of a C major chord. But then staying absolutely glued to that rhythmic key, check it out. Our primary pulses, the primary pulses from that rhythmic key, they're still in there in this final version of this bass line, but all we did was add just a few pieces of musical language around it, and then the bass line starts coming to life, right? 1, 2, and yeah? It stops being, you know, maybe a little bit pedestrian, a little bit dull, and it literally becomes iconic just by adding a bit of spice to the line. Now doing this, adding spice, adding flavor to your bass lines, bringing them to life, it's not a mystery, it's not magic, it's a very learnable skill. In fact, that's what this whole module of bass lines on the fly is about. Learning the skill of adding flavor, interest, spice, life, whatever you want to call it, to your bass lines. Now, from the first 2 modules, you know that first of all, you can be creative. You can connect the ideas that are in your mind to your fingers. And you also know from module 2 how to create bass lines that are incredibly functional. You know how to create bass lines that work with the groove and the rhythmic key of the song. Now, the next logical step in the bass lines on the fly system is to take those very functional bass lines and make them beautiful. And one way of doing that is by adding these bass line spices. The exciting thing about doing this, learning to use these different spices, these different flavors, is that you can learn all of them individually and then use your creativity, your own bassline sensibility, and use them whenever you want. So you can almost create your own proprietary spice blend. So whenever you're playing, you can go beyond just root note bass lines and create lines that you can really be proud of and really hold your own among other more experienced musicians. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this James Jamerson bassline spice recipe. Now, why is this the Jamerson spice? It's not because it's unique to James Jamerson. He didn't, invent it or anything, but he did use it all the freaking time. It's a big part of his sound, and it works incredibly just straight out of the box. If there's only, one piece of language, one bassline spice recipe to take away from this entire module, it's probably this one. It's just so useful. The recipe for this Jamerson spice is just this. 1, 5, 6, 1 of whatever chord you're playing. Now you saw it in Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, and in fact it does that 1, 5, 6, 1 over every chord. We have, over the C chord, 1, 5, 6, 1, 5, 6, 1, 1, 5, 6, 1, and then, you know, over the G chord, we get 1, 5, 6, 1 over the G chord. 1, 5, 6, 1, 5, 6, 1, 1, 5, 6, 1. And remember, we're talking 1, 5, 6, 1 of each chord. So when the song changes to the G chord, we get that 1, 5, 6, 1 over that G chord. Next, we get the same thing on the D minor chord. We get 1, 5, 6, 1, D, A, B, D, A, B, D, D, A, B, D. And then on the F chord, F, C, D, F, C, D, F. So just 1, 5, 6, 1, 5, 6, 1. It's the same 1, 5, 6, 1 idea over every single chord. Now, if you're thinking about how this works kind of visually, if you're looking for the shape, then it's like this. If your root is on the A string, then your 5 and 6 will be on the E string right there. Yeah, and this is probably the more common version of the Jamerson Spice, kind of having the 5 and 6 go below the root, just like, you know, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. But you can also play the 5 and 6 above the root as well. That'd look like this. If your root is on the E string, then your 5th is going to be right above, and then your 6th is going to be 2 frets above that. And the cool thing about this shape is that in this position, you also have access to the high root on the D string, and you can totally use that. In fact, that's exactly what James Jamerson does in the first 4 bars of What's Going On. Check this out. This time it's an E chord, and we get the low root, then 5, 6, 5, 6, and then the second time around we get root, 5, 6, high root, 6. He uses the high root in there, the high E. It's the same kind of idea, slightly different execution, but still that same chord James Jamerson Spice. Now also, like I said, it's not limited to just James Jamerson. Check out the bass line to Madonna's Like a Virgin. Again, this is just a James Jamerson Spice. It's 1, 6, 5, 1, 1, 6, 5, 6, da, 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 da. It just happens to be in F sharp, but it's the same shape, it's the same idea, the same piece of language, and it works brilliantly. Now, as far as where you can use this particular spice, the best place for this is over major chords or dominant chords. In fact, if you look at all the examples we've gone through so far, they're pretty much all major chords. So if you are playing a song with major chords or dominant chords and you need to make things maybe a little bit more interesting than just playing the roots, then the Jamerson Spice is going to sound great when you sprinkle it in. The one caveat being that you have to be honoring the rhythmic key of the song. That's always crucial. That's why we talked about rhythm before we started talking about notes at all in the course. Now, there are some places where the James Jamerson Spice will work over a minor chord, like in the 2 chord of a major key, but in general, it's probably a bit safer to keep this one on major or dominant chords. Now, there are some tracks under this video that are full of major chords. Your drill, your mission for this lesson is to create some bass lines on the fly that use this James Jamerson Spice, that 1, 5, 6, 1 idea. Now, however you think about it is up to you. You can think in terms of the shape, you can think in terms of the chord or the key. As long as good sounds are coming out of your bass, it is all good. So let me show you what I mean. Let's grab up the 12/8 bluesy track here, and I'll show you what I mean. So our chords are C major to G major, and then F, and then we're going back to C, and then G, and then it just repeats over and over and over. Now, these are all major chords, so our Jamerson Spice is going to work perfectly over all of them, but remember our critical concept from Module 2. Make your bass line functional first, and then make it beautiful. That means your first step is creating a functional bass line that's within the rhythmic key of the song, and only then sprinkling in some of that Jamerson Spice. So if I put the track on, again, at first, I'm just going to listen, get a feel for the rhythmic key. Yeah? So after you have a good sense of the rhythmic key, just play the roots of the chords. So I'll try and okay. Now step 2 is to add in some of that Jamerson spice, some of that 1-5-6-1 idea. So we'll go back to the start, and I'll just see where I can put that in. Here we go. Okay, so 5-6-1, 1-5-6-1. That works really well. 5-6-1, 5-6-1, 5-6-1. Okay, that works pretty well, right? Now, if you wanted to get busier as well, that's also an option. You might anticipate some of those like Jamerson spices. You might play around with it a little bit. So let's get a little bit busier, see what we can come up with. Okay. Something like that, you know? There's plenty of options you've got there as well. If you want to get busier and get really crazy, that's totally fine too. Notice how sometimes I was going below the root, so below root, and sometimes I was playing above the root. 5-6-5 or 1-5-6-1, going like that. But I was always doing my best to stay within the rhythmic key. Also, notice just how much variation there can be just using this one spice recipe. This is the best thing about these. Once you learn them, really internalize them, it becomes easy to just kind of plug them into your playing whenever you like. And this is just the first of the bassline spice recipes. So spend a bit of time with the tracks below, create some new basslines on the fly using this Jamerson spice recipe, and I will see you in the next lesson.